Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me again today. We're moving to look at a different end of the school today. We're going to be talking today about transition to Year 7. Now, I think this is pertinent for obviously our new parents who have pupils who are joining us in September, but also there are some key differences between the experience of being a pupil here from the juniors to the seniors. So I think hopefully parents who are carrying on their journey at RAS in September will find some of what we're talking about today useful as well. I'm really pleased that today I'm being joined by Helen Pollard, who's the Director of Marketing and Admissions. And what we've done today is we've had to think about not only the questions that have been sent into us already, but some of those common questions that we get on open morning that seem to come up again and again, that are questions to just help parents really demystify what life is like at RAS in Year 7. So first of all, it's probably worth starting with, well, what are the main differences between primary and secondary school? So in terms of the school day, obviously the subjects that we cover, we have a much greater breadth of subjects in the secondary school. In the juniors, some of the subjects are delivered by subject specialists, but in the secondary school, all of our subjects are delivered by subject specialists. And actually, we're very proud to be able to say that we can offer that. Pupils move around between lessons. There's 6 lessons Monday to Friday and 4 lessons on a Saturday. And pupils will either have 6 lessons a day where they move, or sometimes they're in a double lesson as well. Now, I'm going to mainly focus on school today, but obviously there are some differences in being a Year 7 boarder, ma'am. So what is the experience of the school day from a boarding perspective?
I think the first thing to point out is that everyone's a boarder. So even our local children are boarders. So they will turn up from breakfast till bedtime and stay here till bedtime, having meals here, doing their co-curriculum activities here, and obviously studying here. And so that, I think, sets us apart from any other school. Boarders obviously stay overnight. The flexi boarders stay overnight 7 to 10 nights a year.
So the pupils, if we're talking flexi boarders, those pupils can be dropped at what time in the morning?
It's around about 7:30 to 8, so before breakfast. And depending on what time they're dropped off, they either get dropped off, well, they sign into the boarding house and they may go to breakfast, or they may be too late for that. They just wait in the boarding house with their friends before lesson starts, and then they go over to school with their friends in the morning.
Absolutely. So it's a real day of two halves, isn't it? So the pupils will arrive in the boarding house, potentially go for breakfast, then join us on the school side, have their 6 lessons. They'd then go back to the boarding house at the end of the day, probably do a co-curriculum club, be that archery or swimming or art or drama. Then the pupils will have dinner at around 5:30, 6 o'clock. And then we have what we call prep. Now, prep is homework time, and lots of our flexis will stay for prep. Obviously, the boarders have to stay for prep as well. And that runs for an hour and a half each evening. And that's really an opportunity for the pupils to get their homework done before they go home at night. So actually, would you say that often parents, maybe with busy working lives, do they find that quite a useful system from your perspective?
Absolutely. I mean, there's huge demand for flexi boarding places for that very reason. But if you're a working parent, being able to drop your child off before you go to work and not have to rush to pick them up at the school gates is a huge benefit. And knowing that not only that, they've done their homework or their prep, and you haven't got to chase that down with them in the evening. So you've got quality time with your child in the evening. I
mean, as we often say, we are Surrey's most sought after secondary school,
Indeed.
and I would say that, you know, having to not have the fight over homework at home really can have a positive impact on family life, and I can speak from experience when I say that.
Absolutely.
So let's imagine we're talking now to the parents whose children are going to be joining us in September. Is there anything specific in terms of forms they need to fill out or something they need to do between now and September?
Absolutely, yes. As you can, well, there's so many things we need to know about your child and also your contact details and so on. You'll have given us a certain amount through the application process, but there's a lot more information we need, and that's to do with safeguarding. And also, we will be contacting the child's current school to get information about how they're getting on in school, so we can put them in the right groups when they come to us. So there's an awful lot of behind-the-scenes information we need. But actually, you are going to get death by form, I'm afraid. We've got an online system, and shortly we'll be sending you some links to some forms to fill in, and things we absolutely have to have in place so that we can prepare for your child to join us in September.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I think normally we would be having a move-up day, which is a Surrey-wide day where the pupils in Year 6 can come into Year 7, they can meet some of their teachers, parents can kind of begin that building of that communication with the school. What's induction day going to look like this academic year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really sad that we can't have induction day because it's a fantastic time for children to come and meet their new friends and also get a feel for the school before the summer holidays. Clearly we can't have that this year, but what we are doing is having these sort of webinars. The other thing that parents find really useful, I know on our induction days, finding out more about boarding. So normally on induction day we'll invite the parent to the house before they pick up their child to talk to the head of house. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a head of house, another webinar like this, so the head of house can talk to parents about what's involved with being the parent to a boarder and also a flexi boarder, because flexi boarding is such a unique thing. There's all sorts of questions that parents have about how the house works and just the routines of the house. So we will have a specific seminar and I think that will be really useful.
Yeah, now we always have various things that happen in Autumn 1 to just help the parents and the pupils to settle into our time here. I particularly enjoy the fact that in autumn term I always meet all of the Year 7 parents and I talk to them a little bit about lots of different things to do with the school side, and then we have a kind of meet and greet where the heads of houses come down and some of the senior leadership, and the catering department always put on some nice food for us as well, and then the parents can also meet the tutors, so we can really have a chat about how that child's settling in, etc. I think one of the best things about being a student here is the grounds are so beautiful, and hopefully if you haven't been here already you've seen some of our videos and you see that we have this sort of huge landscape here. That's a little bit intimidating, I imagine, for a Year 7. I mean, what sort of support do we offer to help pupils feel accustomed to those grounds?
Well, I mean, it's not just the grounds. I mean, they've come from a very small primary school to a massive site, and actually one of the things that's about the boarding house is we have a classroom in each boarding house which is used for prep or homework, so, and those are used as classrooms during the day, so that makes the site effectively even bigger. So clearly a lot of support is required. We've got children moving up from Year 6, they support their peers who are joining Year 7. We've also got a huge network of support, the pastoral team, we've got the heads of houses, the boarding tutors, heads of years, tutors, so there's lots of people that children can talk to, and I think that's all explained to them as part of when they join us.
Absolutely. I would say that pastoral support is something that we really pride ourselves on here, and there's lots of different ways that we facilitate that. I think one of the things that I think is so special about this school and unique about us is how we can utilise pupil peer-on-peer support through the house, through our vertical houses. So some of our older children, some of our sixth formers, our Year 11s, our Year 10s who've been through this experience will be house prefects or school prefects, and they can really help those younger year groups as well. Of course, we also then have the pupils are in tutor groups. So there is a tutor and a tutor team and a head of year that's supporting how that pupil's getting on in school. And really there's a positive working relationship between the head of year and the head of house, again supporting that pupil as well. We have the boarding tutors in the house, we have the matrons in the house, we also have our school trained counsellors, and we have the enhanced learning team. So there's a real breadth of people that are there all to support those pupils, because at some point in Year 7 they all find it a little bit challenging, and we're really equipped to help them through that difficult time.
I just interject there. I would just say one of the things that we find that pupils and parents think is the best things about our school is our sense of community, and all those people you've talked about. We work really hard and work together to support the children, and they genuinely feel supported, and I think that's one of the things that makes us different from other schools.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that sometimes our parents talk to us about is about how they address teachers. Is it the same as the way that teachers are addressed in junior schools? Now, some parents might find this a little strange, because in this school we're actually ma'am and sir, and I actually think ma'am is a lot more respectful. I really like that. Now, in some subjects, the pupils will be setted. As they go up the school, more subjects add into the setting, and we do set children based on where we think that child is most likely to succeed. So obviously we look at attainment data, progress data, and our knowledge about that individual child. Now, I think that one of the things that parents can find the biggest challenge between junior and senior school is sometimes I feel that parents can feel a bit disconnected from what's going on during the day, because we move away from a model where the parents are kind of standing at the school gates. It's a very different kind of experience. That coupled with the fact that sometimes teenagers are not the best communicators either. So what are some of the systems that we have in place to help our parents feel connected to what's going on the school day?
I think in this day and age, social media is quite a big thing. So you can we post stories on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Also, we have a photo diary at the moment, and that way we go around the school, my team, and we ask teachers to take photos, just of everyday things and also special events, so that parents can go in and see what's happening at the school. Because I know it all sort of kind of stops the minute they hit 11, and you want to know what's going on, and the children, they grunt more, you get less out of them. So I think it's a really good way of connecting. But also we send out newsletters, and also the progress reports that the academic team send.
Absolutely, we regularly report on the progress of pupils. Now, we unashamedly see that the most important thing to report on is the attitude to learning of the pupils. In my mind, attitude is key, and I stand in front of children in assemblies and tell them that time and time again. We give them a grading for how well we think that they are engaging with lessons, but we do also report on parents on how they're doing academically as well. And obviously we have end of year exams that really help to give that support to that parent so that they can really demystify what's going on in the school day. I was just thinking, ma'am, actually, one of the key ways that parents can kind of get involved and get to grips with what's going on in the school is things like our Friends of RAS, and also the Partnership with Parents events you run.
That's true, yeah. So there's a Friends group, which is like the PTA, and they're very active. They do fundraising, but also they're very involved, and the school do communicate with them a lot to make sure we get their views. Likewise, Partnership with Parents, every term we have a meeting, usually on a subject that's topical, and we invite parents to come and join with us to have a discussion about that, and those that can't come, we communicate beforehand, we take comments, and we update parents via our newsletter afterwards. So, and also the other thing I would say is, as a boarding school, the parents can always contact the heads of house and the boarding house, and there's a lot of dialogue there.
I mean, I would say that when reports go out, when we have parents' evenings, I really see that they begin a dialogue.
Yeah.
So I think that I would always encourage parents to pick up the phone, get into contact with us, because actually we really see that it's important to kind of have that triangle between the student, the teacher, and what's going on at home. And actually that's where we can really support those children to do really well here. So we've talked a lot about the school day. Yep. I tend to veer these webinars to the school day, but I want to bring it back now, because it's not just about what's going on in lessons. Can you help our parents to understand a little bit about what the co-curricular is, if they're not familiar with that term, and what that will look like for a pupil in Year 7?
Yes, I mean, one of the things that's particularly strong at our school is our co-curricular programme, and we have hundreds of activities that the children can participate in. So what we will do is we'll send to parents, so they can discuss with their child, a catalogue of the activities that are available for the upcoming term. They can go through that with their child, choose which activities they'd like to do, and then at the beginning of term, usually in the first week of term, the children then will sign up for those activities. And then once they've signed up, obviously some of the really popular ones, we can't meet the demand, but they'll go on a waiting list. We've got a fairly tried and tested system to be fair about how those activities are allocated. And for Years 7 to Year 9, they're expected to take part in 3 activities every week. Some do a lot more.
Absolutely.
There's a huge choice. You've probably seen on the website, well, it is on the website if anyone hasn't seen it. There's examples of what they can do. It changes every term, so do have a look.
I mean, my advice is always, especially in Year 7, try lots of different things in the first couple of terms. Obviously, you might have a particular penchant for netball or for football or for rugby, but you know what? Try a bit of archery. Maybe do sign up to do some horse riding lessons, because actually, I think Year 7 academically, socially, within the co-curriculum programme, that's the time to really taste all these different things, and you never know, you might find something that you're really skilled at and you can really develop in your time at this school. So, a very busy day here, lots of hard work in lessons, really hard work in prep, lots of socialising in the boarding house, lots of throwing yourself into the co-curriculum programme. Our pupils tend to get very hungry now, don't they?
They do.
Do we feed them?
We feed them a lot.
We do.
I mean, the food here is fantastic. They can have their breakfast here, their lunch here, and their evening meal here. After they finish their school day, they charge down to the house and they have a snack. So there's no shortage of food. And we eat in the dining room. You do as well, I'm sure, ma'am.
Yes.
And I eat there every day, and the food is fantastic. It's homemade. There's homemade soups. There's fresh fruit. There's choices of menus. There's obviously food suitable for allergies and people who've got special dietary requirements. And yes, they can have as much as they
like. And even theme days, we have Harry Potter.
Yes.
The chefs love it. We do round the world cooking, and I can definitely vouch for the food in the boarding houses. I'm very lucky, ma'am, that I teach my classes down in Kent House, and often at break time I get to join the fruit and milkshake. So I definitely teach in the right part of the school. Well, thank you so much for listening in today to our webinar, and obviously if there are other questions, as we say, do pop that in the comments and we can really help to get back to you with any individualised concerns. We'll also be putting a link in the comments to a BBC resource, which is a series of resources which are about supporting pupils who are transitioning to secondary school, and I think maybe you might find some useful little nuggets of information there as well. Thank you so much for joining us again today.